So in this video, we are going to talk about a function called trim, which is a very useful function, and we want to see the use of the trim in the VLOOKUP also. You learned about the VLOOKUP, you learned about the VLOOKUP with the cell referencing, the helper rows you can use, and then instead of using the helper columns, helper rows, you can how put the match function inside the VLOOKUP. So we learned the match and the VLOOKUP combination also. Now there is a one more combination which we often use. Let's go and discuss the trim function. Let's not directly go and use that trim with the VLOOKUP. I'm going to create here some space. You can see I'm writing here some space and I write here Ajay and then again some spaces. I'm pressing space bar. Now when you press enter, this may look like Ajay, but if you go and calculate the total number of characters which we can use using the length function. Not sure if I have told you this thing, but there is a function in Excel called len. When you start the bracket, it has only one parameter. Like VLOOKUP has 4 parameter, match has 3 parameters. This function has only one parameter. So you go and select the cell, and so len, what it does, it returns the number of the characters. So anytime whenever you want to find the number of characters, how many characters are there in that cell, you can use the length function, len function, whatever you want to call it. Now surprisingly, I have got here 8 characters. Now why we are getting here 8? Because Ajay actually holds only 4 characters. It's because of the reason that I have created here some spaces. So you need to understand that whenever you create any space, this always, Excel always count one space as one character. So if you go and backspace it, suppose I remove one space and I press enter, you see that it is now going to be 7. If I again go and remove the backspace from here, this is going to give me the 6. So space always considered as a character in Excel, right? Now in such scenarios where you want to remove the space, because you may have some more items. For example, I write here space Ashu and then I write here Ramesh and then space. In that case, I cannot go to every cell and I keep on removing the space. Now the question comes, why would I go and remove the space? That's we're just going to check. But let's say you want to remove the space. So if you have to remove the space, I cannot go here and use this backspace and then I go to this cell and I see that when you click on this formula bar, your cursor comes here, and that's how you come to know that there is a space there, or there are spaces there. So backspace, and then here also you do the same thing, backspace it. Well, there's no space before Ramesh, before R, so that's okay. So but I can't go in every cell and start doing this thing manually. So what they have done is they have given us this function called trim. So what trim does is, I again go and create the space. You can see here I created the space. Now if I just go and drag this function down, the formula, I drag it, we will have the length of every item. So Ashu, Ramesh, you can see that they are coming more than it should come. Actually we have the more number of characters here, right? We don't need 6 here, we don't need here 6, we don't need here 9. They are actually 4 and maybe I think 6, right? So how to remove the spaces, how to remove the leading and the trailing spaces, right? So we use the trim function. You start writing the trim. As a rule, now that every function, when you write, you press equals to it and start typing, and then you go and use the open parenthesis. Now when I use the open parenthesis, it tells me about the text, which text I want to select, where I want to go. It has only one parameter. So you go and select this and you press enter, and now we are going to drag this. So I go and drag this. Now when I drag this function, you see that I got here all the values, but I do not know whether they have now coming with space or without space. How I can check? Well, I can't click here because now it has a formula. So you will not be able to find it out. So the other thing which you can do is, you can again go and use the length function now on this, and we can see whether the space is there or not. And if I drag this, you see that I got my 4 and 6. So that means trim actually has removed the spaces, the space which comes before and after. Now we need to understand one thing, because when I give this lecture on the trim, sometimes question comes, so what if we have a space between first name and a last name? So are we saying that if I go and trim this text, I will have my Ajay Parmar without space? No, it is not. Now you need to remember that the space which comes between the characters, that's not going to be removed. So if you have here A, B and space D, D, and you think that the trim is going to remove that, this is not correct. This is not correct. These are treated as separate entries, right? So because when we write something in Excel or otherwise also, you give the space before you go for the next word. So trim does not do any alteration here. However, one thing you need to understand, if you have more than one spaces, so I write a Ajay space 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 and let's say P, now when you go and use the length function, first of all, there are spaces. How many spaces we have? Well, I guess I have inserted 3 spaces here or 4. So 4 and 5 are text and 4 or 9, maybe I think more than that, right? So I've got I think 6-7 spaces here. Now if you go and trim this particular item here, what will happen? You can see that the space is removed, but one space will be there, will remain there. Between, I'm talking specifically about the between. So it has removed all the spaces, unwanted spaces, but it will still keep the one space if it exists between the text entries. So you can't say that if the space comes between the two text or two values, it is not going to be removed. Of course it is going to be removed, but having said so, if the space is coming multiple times, then it will be removed. We are talking about the between, right? So it will remove all the unwanted spaces and it will keep one space. It will keep your one space. That's not going to be removed by the trim. Okay, but if you have a space before and after any text, doesn't matter how many times the space is created, time 100 times, everything will be removed, right? So this is how we use actually the trim function. Very simple, just need to trim. Trim means just trim it. Now we generally use this word also, like when you go to any salon, you generally, when you go for the haircut, you sometime you say that you just want the trimming part, just the trimming of the hair, that means kind of the cutting, right? So now where to use this? Now how are we going to use this function? Because this should have some effect also, because if we are using something, we should know that where we have will have to use this, under what situations we find that this trim can be used, right? So I copy this and I go and let's say I go and paste this here. This is my secondary table. Now guys, what I want to do is I do not need the employee ID here. For example, I remove this, right? I just keep a simple database which has the name and the marks. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to create some space here, space Ajay, and in the Abhishek also I'm going to create some space. Okay, nobody can say that there are spaces here until and unless you go and find out manually here, click here and then see. Or maybe you can use the length function, then you come to know that there are some spaces which exist. So what would be the challenge? Now you see, first of all, if I have to find out the marks using the VLOOKUP from this table, then how I'm supposed to do it? I use the VLOOKUP, but why I'm saying that how I'm supposed to use it? I mean, this Ajay is not equals to this Ajay, if you think, because if you go and do this comparison, equals to, this is another way I'm telling you to compare the two cells, whether they are equal or not. Maybe it looks same to you, but for Excel, let us see if Excel also consider them same value or not. So what I did, I said equals to F3 equals to K10. So if the result comes as true, that means F3 and K10 values are equal, and if it says false, then they are not equal. Now you can see that it says false. Are they false? Actually they are false, because if you start counting the length of Ajay, this would have no space. So this returns 4 and this is going to return something 5 or 6. But as an user, if you get this kind of a data, you won't come to know, unless you go and use the VLOOKUP. So what would be the challenge in the VLOOKUP? When you use the VLOOKUP like this, you go in this lookup value and you select this table and then you pick up the second column number, and then you say that I need the exact match, right? That's how we write the function. Now you see that it returns the NA. Now if Ajay is not there, if Ajay is not there, we can understand that why it is giving NA. But if Ajay is there and still you get NA, then what to do? Then this is what you need to do, the step which I have done. Suppose I do not know Ajay are equal and I just got that error, and I then go and press F2 and I see that my reference is also correct, my table is highlighting, and my this lookup is also coming here correct, right? So I have selected the correct values, but still I'm not able to get that. Then what is the reason? Then that's how you can do the quick analysis. You can check that whether these both values are equal or not. The moment you see that they are not equal, then that's the problem. That's the problem which must be because of the space, because otherwise there is no reason why these can't be equal, right? It is only the space issue. So you first go and check this, Ajay, because you do not know where is the problem. So you go and click here and you see that it's coming exactly on the same, it's coming exactly after your Y, and if you click here it's coming as A. But if you go and click on the formula bar here, you see that here also it's clicking on the Y. But what about here? This is where the problem is. You can see that there are some spaces which are created. This is the first method. The second method is, maybe you can quickly go and use the length function. You check and the length of this Ajay, and obviously it comes as 4. So the problem is in this, and then you go and check this as well, because who knows, maybe this may also have some spaces. This may have 3 spaces, 10 spaces, we do not know, but this is coming correct. So ideally I think the problem is in the main table. Now what to do then? Because we need the values, right? You can build up the formula here, you can go and freeze the table quickly. That is not the problem, we all know that. But the point is, if Ajay has this problem, maybe some another name can also have problem. For example, you can see Abhishek is also giving the error, and it's all because of that space which I have created. Look at this when you click on this formula bar. Right, now what to do? Now first you need to identify where is the problem. The problem is in the primary table, not in my table. So which value needs to be trimmed? Obviously these values. We don't need to trim these values because they are coming good, right? So how to trim these values? Now there are 2 ways of doing it. One is you can directly go and write here trim and just trim this, F3. Now when I drag this, F3 will be F4, F5, and we will have all the values getting trimmed, right? We have got all the values trimmed. Maybe you can create a new header, you can say new name, right? So now what we will do, because this is a trim value, this is a correct value, so obviously you can start your table from here. Instead of selecting from E, you can select the table from here. Why? Because this is my new lookup. Now I have the trim values here, so your column will be 3 now, not 2, because if you start your table from here, your column will be 3. So now we have got the value. This is how it is, right? So this is how you use the trim function. Sometime you may get these problems. What is the another method? Now if I have trimmed here, I have kept this header, I have kept this header in my table. But sometimes what people do is, see, they do one thing, they just once they trim the values, we have got the trim values, everything is trimmed. Now the point is, I cannot go and just replace this Ajay with this Ajay. I cannot go and just Control V it. I can't paste it. Why? Because this is a formula. If you copy this and paste it here, if you remember in the cell referencing, we did this exercise also. If you go and copy this and paste here, what will happen? Because you're moving left to right, you will have a new formula developed here, which is trim and then G3. So if I copy this, instead of getting Ajay here, your formula will be G3. And what is in the G3? In the G3 you have 44. So the value will be trimmed. So that is why if you want to paste the output of a formula as a value, not as a formula, you cannot use copy and paste. Because the formula, whenever you Control C and Control V the formula always changes, because Excel checks how many rows you are moving and columns, So what to do? You copy this entire stuff. And you go here and then you use the paste special. Now you would ask me, what is the paste special? Now you see that, guys, the paste special, there is an option. I'm just going to write it every step by step I will do it for you. You go and press the shortcut key called Alt ES. I'll write it down, Alt ES. When you say Alt ES, you know what happens? This window would come. There are so many options here. We will be talking about that. Right now, I'm just interested on the value. So what I did is I need the value. Click OK. And once you click OK, you see that your formula, all these values, you see that this length is also now changed to 4. So you have now new values here, but this is a manual step. You have to do it. So now next time when I use the VLOOKUP here, I don't need the extra column. I simply go and say that K10 and I can start from here. And I can say that go in the second column. This is how it is. And you have your value. So what you did, two options. Either you put the formula here trim and you keep it like this only, and in the VLOOKUP start your table from here because E column has the trim value. Or maybe the second thing what you can do, you can just trim this, you can copy this output, copy this, go in that cell, the first cell, and press Alt ES and just use the value. So what will happen, the entire range which you have copied, that will be pasted to all these cells one by one, right? So this is the another option. So paste value is what? If you have used any formula, for example, this is my formula G3 plus G5 plus G6. If you copy this and if you want here 110 to be printed, you can't use Control V because you know your formula is now changed. It is now J3, J5, J6, and here it was G. So what happened? G, you're moving left to right. So G and then H, I, J. So here we have a different formula. This we know when we copy and paste the formula. But I need 110. Then what to do? So then you use the Control C and go in this cell and say Alt ES. Alt ES and click on the value. This means that the formula will be now pasted as a value. You can see in the formula bar. There's no formula here now. Some people, though I always encourage you to use the shortcut keys because we want to be an expert in Excel, we must know the shortcut keys. But if you don't want to work with the Alt ES, copy this, or in other words, I would say that if you want to find where is this option available in the ribbon, when you copy this, you go in the Home tab. In the Home tab, you have this paste, and here you have this paste special. So you click on the paste special and you click on the value and then click OK. But make sure before you do this step, you should be on that cell where you destination cell, because if I'm just going to copy this from here and I forgot to go to my destination cell, my formula will be pasted here only. So I will have this formula, removed. So there are how to paste value, how to use the paste value, how to use the paste special. I would say paste special. Well, you copy the content, go to destination cell, and then use the Alt ES, or in the Home tab use the paste and paste special. And then values. That's it, right? You want to check that? I want to take the snapshot of this. You can. So let's say I go and click here. I take the snapshot of it for your reference. And now we go and copy this here. So this is your paste special. Okay, Alt ES, paste special. You have to press Alt ES in a sequence. Okay, in a sequence means you can't say that E and then Alt and S. First Alt and then E and then S without any pause. Quickly, with your fingers. So what does paste special does? Paste special we use paste special value. I think we should say, because there were some other options as well there. Paste special value we use whenever we want to paste the output of the formula. Only the output, not the formula. Right? Because when you copy and paste the formula changes the reference, and if the reference changes, you cannot expect the same value. So this is what I wanted to tell you, right? So now the question comes, what if the problem is in your Ajay? So let's say I create here space like this, then also you will have an ending, isn't it? Because now this Ajay is not equals to this Ajay or this Ajay, whatever, because this has some space. Now again you can do one thing. You go and use the trim here, and you can trim your own values also. Now you do not know if this is the only one-off case or there are some other values as well which needs the trimming. So you trim every item, doesn't matter. It's not going to do any not going to create any problem, because if the value needs trimming, the trim will do. If the value does not have any space, it will remain as it is. There will be no challenge. So once you have now this thing coming here, now you know that you have all the values coming here as trim value. So again you can do one thing. You go here and you start writing now VLOOKUP, and instead of this Ajay, now you can go and use this Ajay, because this is a trim one, right? And then you go in this table, or you have to see which one you want. If this is a trimmed one, you can start. If this is not a trim one and this is the one, then you can start from here. So that's all. That's you need to decide. So this is the one of the method you can use. Now you can see that you got the value here. It should be 3 actually if I'm selecting my table from this column, right? Now when it is about trimming your own items, I do not want to trim this and unnecessarily create one more column. Instead of that, what I will do, I will go and use the VLOOKUP. This is my Ajay, right? Now please see, I'm selecting the Ajay which has a space. Forget that there is any J column. I go in this table, this one, because E has a trim value, and 3,0, and I know I will have the error, because if you go and check this in a formula bar here in this formula, this is the one option I told you. If you want to see step by step how the formula works, you see that in the K10 which is underlined, you will have Ajay space. So if Ajay space comes, then that means it will look for Ajay space, and in the main table you don't have any Ajay with the space. That is the problem. So what you have to do, before the VLOOKUP picks this K10, it should be trimmed, and it should be trimmed within the formula. So can we not say that trim Ajay, close the formula? You must close this, because formula must be closed before you press enter, right? So what are you saying now? You're saying trim K10. So inner functions first get executed. Even in the case of the VLOOKUP with the match, if you remember, the match first executes and then column number comes, and then that column number gets used by the VLOOKUP. So we have a same concept here. Your trim is going to execute, and now you can see that there is no need to create any separate column. You can directly use the trim inside the VLOOKUP also. You can click on this evaluate formula and see how the formula it behaves. K10. So I click on the evaluate. This comes as Ajay space. Now what is the job of the trim? To remove the space. Now it is ready for the VLOOKUP. Now VLOOKUP use this Ajay without space and returns the value. So that's how you use the trim function with the VLOOKUP. So first you need to identify that which table has a problem. Maybe both tables can have a problem. Maybe one table can have a problem. But if whichever table have a problem, we will go and do that. So I remember in one of my exercises, because I think you guys are not practicing, otherwise you would have come to me, or maybe if you would have done it, that's great. But I have created there some sort of this thing that I have said that let's say this is my semester 1, and this is my semester 2, this is my semester 3, 4, 5, 6. I have got these numbers here. Okay, I go and create some random numbers here. I select this and I say rand between. You don't have to learn this formula right now. So I created some numbers. For example, this is your table. Now in that exercise, what we have done, I wanted to find out some semester names. Okay, some semester names which are, maybe the data is in the different sheet or in this sheet, it does not matter at all. I'll keep it simple. I'll keep this in the same sheet so that you can see. Now in this particular case, what happened, I got the semester 1 with no space, and then I got semester 2 with space, and then I got semester 3 with space, and then let's say I got semester 10 with space and semester 11 without space. That is how the entire thing is. So now how are you going to use the VLOOKUP? Now obviously first you go and use the VLOOKUP, considering that this is your table, and this table starts from C and it stops at N, right? So you go and use the VLOOKUP. You look up this name, which is whatever it is, G12. You have a table. I told you table should start from name. You cannot start from any other column. This has to be the leftmost column. So you cover the entire table. Now, why you want to cover the entire table? Because you have the different semesters, and there is one semester which is 11, and that comes in the last. So I have to drag this formula left to right. So I want to make sure when I drag this left to right, all the headers will be covered in that table. So that's why I'm selecting the entire table. Then what is a column number? Now column number for semester 1 actually is 2. So I can write here 2, but I will not do that, because then I have to write this for semester 2, semester 3, semester 10 manually. And then I will go and check that, manually. And that's something I do not do that. So what do? I go and use the match function, because match will find out semester 1 in this table. So you go and say semester match, look up what? My semester 1, and this is the table. So this is the table I'm going to select, which has a 1 row, because match does not use more than 1 row. And then you say 0, because you need the exact match, So once you're done with the match, because this is the last parameter, you close this. Now, when you close this, you are ultimately, going to come back to the VLOOKUP. Excel takes you back to the VLOOKUP so that you don't forget that you actually are writing the VLOOKUP function, and match is not just a only match. It is a part of VLOOKUP. It is used in one of the parameter of VLOOKUP. Which parameter? Which is bold right now. So we wanted to get the column number. We wanted to get the position, the column number of semester 1 in this table, which is 2, but let the match do this job for us. So now you have a column number here. Now once you have a column number here, what do you need? You're back on the VLOOKUP. So for the VLOOKUP, we need the exact match. So that's how we write the function 0. This we have seen, right? I'm not doing something new. I press enter and we got the thing here, which is NA. Now Ajay comes here and I press F2 and I want to check whether my reference is correct or not. So because this is how first you investigate. If the error comes, what is the issue? Now to check the formula, I keep this on the line left. I press F2. I got here Ajay and I got here table, and this is what the match is. So I think my match reference is also correct. My VLOOKUP table is also good, and my lookup value is also good. And I have here Ajay also. So what I do, I see that now there must be problem with this Ajay and this Ajay. So as a as my first step, I will quickly go and do this analysis if this Ajay is equals to this Ajay or not. So I go and press enter. You get to see here true. You get the true, that means they are equal. Now if they are equal, then where is the problem? Now you see the problem may be in the match function. Because if this Ajay is equals to this Ajay, then what else we are doing in this formula? We are also looking up this semester 1 in this table. And we know they are not equal. You can see that. But sometimes, we just not able to see that. This is also true. So maybe I can do quickly this, because the match is looking up this, semester 1 in this table. So are they equal or not? They are not equal. And we know that the reason, right? So now you have a choice. What do you want to do? You either create here a position, because I'll tell you what is happening in the background. I still go and repeat this. I go in the formula tab to check how it is working. You see that G12 comes as your Ajay, which is correct. Now match is going to look up this H11, which is SEM1, semester 1, right? And the match is going to check that in the C2 to N2 column, in this yellow one. So that means if it exists, it should get some column number for you. So when I click there, it does not. And because the VLOOKUP gets the error in the column number, you will get the error in the VLOOKUP. That is the problem. So once you know that the problem actually is in the match, not in the VLOOKUP, you go and check the match parameters. So in the match parameter, I have H11 and the table. Table I already know it is selected properly. It is not having any problem. The problem is now in the only parameter which is left is H11. So you go and check that, doing the equals to comparison, or maybe if you just, by looking at it, if you got to know that, all right, so this is a space issue, you go and create here a space, like this. And the moment you do that, you have your 44 coming. But then the problem is that I have to go in every cell one by one and I have to create that space, because in semester 11 also I will have a problem. So I will have to do this manually in every, this header. So I have a choice now. Either I should go to, I go to every cell and start creating the space between SEM and the number, or the shortcut is, the better way is, why don't you just go and remove the space from here, that is also okay. But the point is, you cannot go and remove the space using the trim function, because I told you trim cannot remove the space between the characters. If there's just one space between that, the trim is not going to work. You can see that it's not going to work. Now what to do? Now you should create here a space. That's the first option. But still I say I want to automate this. I really don't want to go to, because imagine if you have 15 headers here, so you will have to search every header one by one if it has any space, and then go and start removing it manually. Now on the other side, you could have removed the space from this if that was the before or after case, but here we have a space between it, and this trim cannot do it. So what is the solution now? The solution is, you just go and select this entire range and you go and use the Control H. Control H is used for the replace, or you can go to the home and you can extreme side, on the extreme side, this option you can use replace. I go and use the Control H, is also visible here. You can see that, right? I take the screenshot of this. Replace. Now what do you want to replace? I want to replace the space. So type in here space. This space, I typed in here space bar, okay? This should be replaced with what? Nothing, just like that. Click on the replace or replace all. As a beginner, always use the replace so that it can go one by one and you can see how it is working. If you go and replace all, that is also okay. It will replace all the items, but make sure first, please go and select that range. Otherwise, Excel will remove this double space, this single space with the no space everywhere. Maybe you may have some names here, Ajay space Kumar, that will also be replaced. That is why I have selected this, and I'm going to replace it quickly. You can see that it's showing you where it is going to replace it. Step by step we are going. The space are removed, and you can see in the VLOOKUP also it immediately picked up that value. So I think this is the best option. This is how you can use it. Now you got all the headers without space. So same way guys, you have to do this here also, because here when you drag the formula left to right, this will not work, because match will not be able to find this semester space 2 in this. So that means we have to do this step here as well. So I go and select my headers and I say Control H. This time I use the Control H, okay? So I go and paste the snapshot also here of this Control H. You can see that replace. This is for the replace in the home tab. So I come back here and I say Control H. So I'm gonna type find what. It's already there, the space is already there, so I go and say replace all. So this is how. First, my job is to make sure that the headers should not have any spelling issues. Uppercase, lowercase, in capital or in small letters, that's not the problem. Excel is very good in that. But the problem comes when you have a spelling mistakes. And spelling mistakes, actually when you create a space, that is also considered as a spelling mistake, because Excel treat that space as a one character. Now once I am sure that I have done the right job, now I have leveled my all the headers, they are all now having the same spellings. I will go and freeze my all the required things. So my G12, which is my lookup, I go and freeze this as $G12, left to right, G should not change. This is my VLOOKUP table, I freeze this, and now this semester 1 going down, it should not be freezed. Maybe we want to keep this H12, H13. So that is how we're gonna keep it, right? And C2 completely freezed, N2 completely freezed, because they are match tables. We have seen this many times. So now if my reference is correct, I should be able to get my all the values. There we go, right? So this is how your VLOOKUP works. Now you would ask me that where I have used the trim function in this case. I have not, because the space was between the alphabets. It was not before or after, otherwise I would have done it, right? So I mean, it's not that if you have a space issue, then you are just totally dependent upon trim. You can use the other activities, other features also, like we use the control edge. That is what I'm trying to tell you. But in a case, for example, I create here space in front of Ajay now, like this. You know, error will come. And you know, this comparison will also now start showing false, right? This will come as false. Now in this particular situation, what are you gonna do? You know the problem is in this, Ajay, because you can check the length of this. How would you come to know? Obviously you will go and use the length, you know, or maybe you can go and select the cell and click on the formula bar, and you will come to know. You can see the formula bar is where it is not coming after the y. So that means the problem is there, right? Now I can go and remove this manually, but there must be other 100, 1000 names where this problem may come. So to avoid that manually, you know, removing the spaces, I go in this formula again. You have to trim this, Ajay, you know that. So this Ajay is coming here in the G12, right? Now before this G12 is used by VLOOKUP, let us first trim this. So what you will do, you will say that trim and start writing this function like this. Close this. G12 should be trimmed first of all. Once it is going to be trimmed, VLOOKUP will now use it. So I go and press enter, and you see that I got my answer. So I'm going to create here one space here also in the Ramesh, right? And this is also the problem. So once I've done that, I drag this, and you can see that because your dollar signs are perfect, it is just a change that just a trim function you develop, you written, the formula remains the same. So now you can see that there is no problem coming here. But what if the problem is in here also? So here you have 2 spaces, 3 spaces in Ajay. Again guys, you will have the problem, because this Ajay is not equals to this Ajay. But now how to rectify this Ajay? Because you cannot trim this Ajay in this formula, because in this formula I'm not using this Ajay, I'm using my Ajay which I have trimmed. So I can take the responsibility of that. I can trim it in the formula. But what about this Ajay? So for this Ajay, we have to actually go and trim these values first manually. You go and trim this, and then once you go and trim this, you drag this. Let's say you want to, trim all the names here, because maybe Ramesh can have a problem like this. It has a space. So now what you do is you just copy this and paste it back here. Paste value so that we can have the trimmed values. You do this, okay, you have the answer. Or what is the, let me undo it. What is the another solution? If you have trimmed this and you do not want to copy and paste value that here, then just go and change your range from here. Now the range for the VLOOKUP should start from here, because this is your new VLOOKUP, and at the same time your match should also start from here, because match and VLOOKUP should have the same starting column and end column. That's a different thing, that match uses always one row, but match should also start from B, and VLOOKUP also start from B. So again I go and press enter, and you can see you have your answer like this. Now just to make this exercise little more advanced, I go and create the space here. Now what will happen? You will have the error, because this semester 1 now is not here. They are different, not because of between space, but because we have a space after this one. But this can be handled. Suppose I go and create the space here also. I just go and create one space. You have a problem here, right? So what will you do now? This semester 1 you're using to find out the column number in the match lookup, here. So can we not trim this H11 directly in the formula before match lookup this? We can trim it, So I go and say trim, start bracket, like this. So we have a trim value. You can see that now your semesters are also trimmed. Your lookups are also trimmed. So this is how this formula looks like. you're just doing nothing actually. You're only trimming the lookup value. So before the lookup value, you're only using the trim functions. If they are, if it is necessary, only then. I mean, sometimes we have these headers coming with spaces, so we want to avoid that. That is how it is. Any questions we have?
No.
Okay. So um, a VLOOKUP is used with so many functions. You know, it is used with trim, it is used with match, it is going to be used with many other functions as well. So when we cover those functions, we keep coming back to these things. So let me just close this now, VLOOKUP function. Now in this chapter, we're going to quickly do some exercises which will use the VLOOKUP and the if. As I said that there is no as such a specific rule which stops you from using one formula with the another. I mean, if you learned VLOOKUP with the match, don't be surprised if you find somebody is using maybe some another combination, maybe with the VLOOKUP, you know. So it all depends upon the scenarios. There is no rule that VLOOKUP is always used with the match if we have to use. That's not how it is. For example, I say that since we have done the if functions, so I go and write here, let's say Ajay, Ria, Ronnie, Jason, Rima, Anup, Rajiv. Let's say I have written here some name, and what I do is I write here their marks 10, 30, 50, 60, 70. Now what I want to do, I want to go here in this sheet, in the same sheet, and I want to say that Rajiv is there, Rima is there, and Ria, right? Now I want to say one thing, that any student who has got marks, greater than 50, let's say, should not be given any grace marks. Any student who has got less than 10 marks, if marks are less than 10, please give 5 grace marks to that student. In case if it is greater than 10, not 50, let's say, don't do anything. This is what we want to do. So here you want to do this. You want to find out their scores and you want to do the comparison then finally from the main table, and then you want to go ahead and, you know, give them the grace marks if the marks are found less than 10. So now the first thing is, how will you check that what are the marks? What is the mark? You know, what is the current score of Rajiv? What is the current score of Rima? And what is the current score of Ria? Because once you find the marks, only then you'll go ahead, you know, and start using this if condition. So first, how I can find the marks? I go and say VLOOKUP Rajiv in this table. No need to use the match because it is just a one very small table. We know there's just a one column here. You got the marks, freeze it. Done. Okay, now we want to put this criteria. What I want to do, I want to say that if, start the bracket, this is your logic test. Now in the logic test, what you will do, as we know in the logic test, we always do a comparison which returns, which gives us back true or false. So I say that if the value of this entire function is greater than 5, if it is greater than 5, so what will happen? What do you want to write in the value of true? Then you go and add 5, sorry, it should be less than 10, sorry. If it is less than 10, then what I want to do, I want to add 5 to the marks of that person. But how do you know that what marks that person has got? So you now go and use the another VLOOKUP here. So you say that VLOOKUP, because we need to find out the score, of this person, Rajiv. First, I go and use the VLOOKUP like this. And once it returns the, that score for me, I will say that should be added with the 5. But what if the score is not less than 10? Then you have a false parameter. So we know that in the false, this function will come whenever we have a situation where we don't have the score greater than 10. Where we have a score greater than 10 actually. So in the case of greater than 10, you do not want to give any surplus marks. So what do you want to do? You want to show the marks obtained by that student. But how would you get to know that? Again, you will use the VLOOKUP. You look up this and you go in this table. And you say second column and 0. That's it. You press enter, and finally, do you want to accept this correction? Basically, when you write these formulas, the closing bracket needs to be properly put here, because I have here this bracket and one VLOOKUP bracket, so I have to close this. But anyways, that's okay, because it has already inserted that, and it is just saying that I got a typo error in your formula and I am going to work on this. Do you want to accept this? I say yes, and that the closing bracket will come here. So that's okay, it's not a big deal. I go and freeze this table of this VLOOKUP like this. Now let's go and drag this, and let's see that if you got the correct answer. So what is the score of Rajiv? Rajiv scored 33, which is greater than 10. So that's why Rajiv got 33. What is the score of Rima? Rima also scored greater than 10, so no change. What about Ria? Ria also scored 30, which is not less than 10. But if I just go and put here, let's say Ria got only 3 marks, then this should be 8. That is how it is. This is how we work with the VLOOKUP and the if functions. So basically, if you see what we have done, we first if I have to write this in steps, we first found the marks of a student, right, using VLOOKUP. Once, because marks is what you want to put under the scanner, so we have to find the marks. And that marks, how do we know what marks that person has got? Because that Rajiv can be anywhere in that database. It's a big database, right? So VLOOKUP is there, so we use the VLOOKUP. But now the VLOOKUP returns the marks. What is the next thing now? Now that marks, you're gonna say that if that marks, the which we got it from VLOOKUP, if that is less than 10, then what to do? Then you got to add the 5 to the current marks of that student, But the point is, how will you come to know what is the marks? Again, you use the VLOOKUP in the if true criteria. So VLOOKUP again captures that name, and if it captures that name and then it finds the marks of that student, it adds 5 to it. And if this fails, then we don't do anything. Then we simply just capture the current marks. So that's why you're actually seeing here 3 VLOOKUPs. This VLOOKUP which we have used, this is going to return you something, and that something is going to put up, we're going to put that comparison here. So this will return true or false, because logic test always returns true or false. So I got here my true or false. Once I got the true and the false, basis that I got to go and start writing the true and the false parameters. So I say that if my VLOOKUP returns value which is less than 10, then I got to add 5 to that the marks. But you just can't go and write here in the true just 5, because you have to add that 5 to the current score of that person. So once again you use the VLOOKUP, because this VLOOKUP here which you are using, this is going in the logic, because you are doing the comparison here. So this VLOOKUP returns true and false. If it is true, that means it is less than 10. So I'm going to find out the score of that person and then I'm going to add to it. But what if the condition fails? So condition fails means that the person has got greater than 10 marks. In that case, we just go and capture the marks of that person without adding any additional marks. So if I go and click on this formula tab and I click on the evaluate formula, and if I have to see how the formula works, you can see here VLOOKUP K10 underline item, it's Rajiv, so it's going to look up Rajiv. So it's going to look up Rajiv. It's going to look up Rajiv in E3 to F10. It finds 33. Is this less than 10? No. So what would be the output? False. So if it is false, then where the VLOOKUP, where this if function will go? Obviously here, because this is a true parameter, entire function, and this will be ignored. So we will go in this K10, in this VLOOKUP. So in this VLOOKUP we have a K10 which is Rajiv, and then we will have it look, we will have this function lookup in E3 to F10, and finally Rajiv is going to, we are going to look up Rajiv, and then we are going to find this 33. That's how it is. And in the if function, either true parameter executes or false parameter executes. Both the parameters does not going to be executed. That is the thing. Now if I put this situation, if I just go and let's say I put some more marks here. Let's say I go and create one more table. This is the another exercise. So let's say you have, this is your science scores and this is your maybe English score, right? Now I go and write here one more score which is maths. So I have here some numbers again. Now my question is, what if you're asked to give the final here the what is the final call for these students in terms of whether they are passed or they are failed, but there is a condition. They say that if the student has scored greater than 80 in any of the marks, he or she should be marked as pass. So if student scored greater than 80 in any of these subjects, he or she is passed. Else fail. So what is the condition? The condition is, if I got 60, 60, 60, I am fail. If I got in any of these situations, if I got greater than 80, or let's say in all the subjects I got greater than 80, then also it is pass. So I must write here, if student score greater than 80, or I would say, let's say if the student scored greater than 60 in all subjects, pass. And what is the second condition? The second condition is, let's say the student did not score greater than 60 in all the marks. Maybe his science is weak and he's got 40. But before we go and show him as fail, please go and find out his or her marks in other subjects also. And if we find that in any of the subject that person has got greater than 80, let us go and pass him or her. So you have two scenarios. One is if in all the scores we have 60, 60, 60. Let's say in this case, I write here 78, 76, 65. So this person is pass, you know. So I'm going to write it here. Here we will write the formula. So this should be passed. But in a case like this, ideally this person has not got greater than 60 in any of the subject. But in the English, Anup has got 88. So we want to give him a benefit. We want to say that this person is passed. And this person hasn't got greater than 60, neither greater than 60 nor greater than 80 in any of the subjects. So this person should be marked as fail. This is the task we want to do. Now the first thing is, how will you come to know? So let's say not here, I'm not going to write that here. I'm going to write it here because you have another table, you know. So we go and write here Rajiv, Anup and Ria, and let's say Ronnie. So I repeat the question again. Now here I have got Rajiv, Anup, Ria and Ronnie. Let's say these are my teammates, and I want to see that if they are pass or fail. And obviously if Rajiv has got greater than 60, if Rajiv got 60 in all the, you know, greater than 60, I mean 61, he's got 61 or maybe more than that in all the subjects, he's pass. But if Rajiv doesn't got score greater than 60 in science, but he's got that in the English and the maths, but he's got the greater than 80 in the English and the maths, pass. So what if Rajiv didn't score good in science and then English, I mean he scored less than 60, but in the maths he scored 80, then also pass. Simple concept, right? If somebody has got 80, 80, 80, greater than 80, 80, 80, I mean in all the subjects, pass. If somebody has got 80, greater than 80 in one subject, but the rest of the subjects we don't mind what he scored or what she scored, maybe they are failed, maybe they have scored 10, 5, 10, doesn't matter, but I got that person greater than 80 in one of the subjects, so I will simply go and show that person as pass. This is what we are going to do now. Now, you know, in this particular scenario, first of all, your entire story is revolving around the scores. So who's going to tell you the score? VLOOKUP. Because you first go and find out the score of Rajiv, and then you can, you know, further go and design the things. So first I go and get the score of this Rajiv, because I do not know, you know, where is this Rajiv person. It's a big table. Imagine this has maybe 1000 records. So I go and select the entire table, right? Now the point is, in this particular scenario, when you write the VLOOKUP, you will pause for a moment, because then you start thinking that which score I need now. Because I need to, I think, evaluate science, English, math. Every score I need to evaluate. And in one VLOOKUP, I can't. In one VLOOKUP, either I can evaluate science or English or maths. So does that mean that I got to use 3 if here, one by one? 3 VLOOKUPs here, you know. So guys, now you see, if you see the first parameter, let's talk about the first condition. Every score has to be greater than 60, every subject. That's a compulsion, mandatory thing. So you have a multiple criteria here. Score in science, score in English, score in maths, all are supposed to be greater than 60. So that means science greater than 60, English as well greater than 60, maths as well greater than 60. Which function can do that for us? If and. You have 3 criteria. So you're supposed to write if and, because you want all criteria to be true. It's not a case of one. I'm not talking about the second scenario. I'm talking about the first scenario, where I said that you got to have greater than 60 in all subjects if you want to show this person as a pass candidate. So that means I go and start writing the if and. This is how we write the if and. Let me go to the formula bar here. Now what is the logic 1? Logic 1 obviously should be a score of Rajiv either in science or English or maths. Let's say we pick up the science first and then English and then maths. Now how are you going to know what is the score of Rajiv? You do not know the score, right? Because Rajiv is somewhere here in this table. So first you will find out the score of Rajiv in science. How are you going to do that? Use the VLOOKUP. So I will go and start writing the VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP Rajiv here in this table. And if you find the Rajiv, get the second column. I'm talking about the science. N0, right? So that means this will give you some value. But you know, in the logics, you can't put the values. You have to test. You have to put them under testing. So what is your test in this particular logic now? Let's say VLOOKUP returns you some value. So Rajiv got 33 in the science. What do you want to do with that 32? You want to say that whether that 33 is greater than 60 or not. So you go and write 60. This becomes the logic now. If this returns true, that means the person got greater than 60 in science. This is my logic 1. What is my logic 2? Now I go and find out the marks of a same person in English. So instead of doing the same thing again, I just go and copy this formula and I comma, go to the logic 2 and I control V it. I control V it, so I have pasted the formula, but this time what I need the third column, right? Because in the third column I have my English. So now Rajiv will have its English score and that will be put under the test, which is if it is also greater than 60, comma, logic 3, again control V, and this time go to the maths. Is there any other logic left? No. We have covered all the scores. Now, you know, to go to the value if true parameter, I go and close the bracket because there is no logic 4. And then I use the comma. So what is the value in the value of true? So what do you want to do now? You want to show pass. Because if this happens true, if this if and is going to come as true, you are going to show that person as pass. And if it is not true, then are you gonna show that person as fail? No. There is one more testing, that if he hasn't got greater than 60 in all 3 subjects, then go and check whether that person has got some in any of these subjects greater than 80. Now we are talking about any. We are not talking about all. Now you will go and use if or in this false. So you say that if this entire thing fails, this comes as false, this comes as false, this comes as false, or any of the, let's say any of these VLOOKUP comes as false, which means not greater than 60, you know, this if and will return the false parameter answer, and in the false it will not go and print the pass, it will go here. So in this case, now you want to go and check the second condition. If the first if and fails, then I want to go and check the next condition, which I'm going to write like how, which I'm going to say that if or. So if the VLOOKUP, if the score of that person, again I will have to find all the scores, so I go and use the Rajiv, again I go and, you know, in the same formula, second column and 0. Now I say that are you greater than 80, which means science. Logic 2 would be what? Same logic. But remember these logics we are writing in the if or. So it's going to check one by one in the or scenario. So this is my logic 3. Again I go and control V it. Let me go and change the column number. This is 4 and this is 3. So if any of these scores in this column number 2 which is science, column number 3 which is English, and column number 4 which is maths. If I find anywhere greater than 80, then what are you supposed to do? Time to go for the logic 4? No, we have covered the 3 logics. Time to close the bracket, and then you get to see your value of true and value false. So now what are you going to write in the value of true? If this condition is going to be true, that means somewhere this person has got greater than 80. Maybe in all the subjects. Well, in all the subjects it will never happen, because then your function will not come here. Because if I got greater than 80, then that means this condition, this condition must be true. Because if I got greater than 80, that means I have got greater than 60. So if I have got greater than 60, why would I go and execute this false? Because the if then stops here, it prints the pass, it will never go to this. This if is going to be executed only if this if fails, right? So now once I am on this, if I have got greater than 80 in 2 subjects, if I have got greater than 80 in 1 subject, I'm going to execute this true part, which is again pass. So I'm going to say that you are now pass. But if this fails, then what is left? Then there's nothing. We got to mark that person as failed, because we have already tested the greater than 60 also, and after if the greater than 60 fails, and then if this also fails, that greater than 80 in any of the subject, then we don't have anything to display. I simply go and then please go and write here in the value false fail and stop the function. That's how we write the if function. Now I have to put here many closing bracket because I have written so many if, but that's okay. I just go and press enter, and I want to accept this correction quickly. It inserted one more closing bracket, so that's how it is. So finally I have got the Rajiv as fail. I should go and freeze the table quickly. So this is my C2 to F9. So I go and freeze all these tables. This one. Now the formula looks long, but if you see it and if you start making it, it's very easy. You're just going to write the VLOOKUPs, VLOOKUPs, and you're doing nothing, right? So I go, and now I think my reference is covered. Let's go and drag this. Let's go and check that. So we got somebody here pass, and let's go and check that. Anoop. Okay, so what is the Anoop score? 50 fail, 88 pass. He's got 88 pass, right? One more person, Ronnie. What about the Ronnie? Ronnie has got nowhere 80, greater than 80, but he's got greater than 60 in all. If I go and change this to, let's say, 50, now this person is not, if I just press enter, I'm sure he's going to be marked as fail, because neither he's got 80 in any of the subjects, nor he is able to get greater than 60 in all the subjects. Can we go and check that? Let me press enter. So what about the Ronnie now? Ronnie still shows me as pass. Now this is very interesting. We are getting some error here now, isn't it? Because I got here 78 and 76. Greater than 60, but this is not greater than 60. So this is a fail. But can we check the second condition, greater than 80? That is also not coming. Why this is coming as false, pass? That means there is some problem in this function. Now how I'm gonna supposed to check that? Well, the first thing which I will do is I will quickly go and check my all the references, are they correct or not. I just go and click here or F2, whatever. My table is correct, my Ronnie is picking up, and I think this is looking good. I go and check my table, C2 to F9, C2 to F9, C2 to F9, C2 to F9. So I got here C2 to F9, C2 to F9. Okay, so C2 to F9, this also okay. Okay, now I go and check the column numbers here. So
I think there's a mistake in one of the columns. We've repeatedly taken column 3 now. In the top row where it's greater than 60, we have a 3 column here, and then
yes, so there you go.
that's supposed.
Yes, absolutely. So this is 3 and this is 3. That's a nice catch. And this is what I was talking, that maybe somewhere we are not picking up all the marks. So I go and change this to 4, like I did here. Now we go and press enter. Now again I'm doing something wrong. You know what? I'm actually going and doing the changes in this formula because I found the error here. But as I said, always make a habit that when you do something, some changes you should do on the top of the cell and then drag it, because this is a different formula and this is a different formula. Then you can't leave the formulas like in this faulty mode. So I will make sure that I go on the Rajiv. Doesn't matter even Rajiv is giving me correct value or not. That may be a value issue that you're not getting that kind of a match, and the formula returns you the value which looks like a correct value. But in the case of like Ronnie, somewhere down you may have some more problems coming. So we will go and drag the formula again. So I go and keep this change this to 4, and now I go and drag this from here. That's how I'm going to do it. Or there is another option, which is, suppose you found the Ronnie is not coming correct, no problem, you correct that, but then you just copy that and paste it back to all the cells, Control C and Control V. It's the objective is to keep the uniformity in the formula, whether you go from the bottom to the top or top to bottom. It is always easy to go from top to bottom because dragging works top to bottom, right? So I have my answer here. Now Ronnie shows me as a fail, which is making sense. I go and change this back to 77. Perfect. Now let's talk about Ria also. So Ria scored 3, 44, 44. So if I go and say that Ria scored here 97, this is working now. So this is how we use the VLOOKUPs with the if functions. Now, if and can also come, if or can also come, single if can also come, and moreover nested if also can come. Like in this case, what we did, you first did use the VLOOKUP that if in every subject we got greater than 60, let's go and show that person as pass. But we didn't write here fail, because my question was not that if the student has scored greater than 60, then show them as pass, otherwise fail. No, I said that first go and check if they got greater than 60, very nice, in all the subject, pass. But if it is not the case, then let's see that if they have scored somewhere in any of the subject as 80. So you have to put that also if, and that is what we have done here, nested if kind of, you can see that. So we have used the if in the if, but also in the collaboration of the VLOOKUP. And since you got that error, so I hope that you have actually worked on the if functions. Otherwise, that error catch was not so easy to find it out. So let's go and talk about something else as well. In this case, I'm going to make this exercise little more complex. So let's go and copy this again, the same database here. Let's do one more exercise here. Now, this time what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the match, trim, everything with the if functions. Okay. So we have here, let's say drawing. We have here physics. And we have here chemistry. You can mute. Now I got these marks here. So I say now so I've got here marks of all the these students, and now I go and deliberately create some spaces, but not here, not in this table, in my own table. Okay, so let's go and do that. Now this time we will use another table in the another sheet. There will be no difference, but still we have these people here, and I'm going to just cut this here and paste this here, and I'm going to show that English here, maths, I'm creating here space, remember, right? And then drawing, space, and then space chemistry, and space physics. And I'm going to create here Ria space, so that VLOOKUP should not be able to capture them in the JSON also have a space, and the Anup also I have a space, right? So this is your table finally, and I've told you the problem area, but in the practical environment you won't, nobody is going to tell you that, you have to find yourself. So now you have these scores here, and there is a condition that I just want to automate this task. So that's why I just go and write here. Somebody got a score. If physics and chemistry, if you have got greater than 80, pass. Okay. If in all subjects, if the total of all subjects, right, is greater than, let's say we have how many subjects? We have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5, let's say every person has got 60. So 5 into 60 is 300. So I say if the total marks obtained in all the subjects is greater than 300, doesn't matter if somebody got 10 in English and then that person has got 19 maths and then 19 drawing. I want to see the total. The total of all the subjects is greater than 300, then I also pass. This is what I'm trying to tell. And if the average of subjects, if the average of the subjects is, let's say, greater than 50, then also then we want to say in progress, else fail. So I have got here 3 conditions. You already know physics and chemistry can be handled pretty well by if and. We just go and find out the physics score, chemistry score, and we put that in the if and. So with 2 VLOOKUPs we will put on the if and that's where we will start writing the formula. But what if that fails? Then you want to find out the total. Now to find out the total, what will you do? Are you going to use 5 VLOOKUPs? That VLOOKUP first, find out the English and then plus it with the maths and then drawing. That is also a good option. But instead of that, can we not simply go here to make our task simple? Why don't we just go and create here a total, which is not a part of your exercise, which is not a part of your table, but you are doing it to make your formula small, right? So I go and say that let me get the total. So I go and use the total sum here, and with this we will hide it from the user. Maybe you can create this somewhere here, maybe here in the last cells, right? It's all up to you what you want to do. I'll create it here and I'll then going to hide them. Now what about the average? For the average we can use the average function, right? Average of this. So finally, instead of me doing all this in the VLOOKUP, I'm just going to do this here. I'll do it both ways. So you got the average here as well, right? And finally what we will do, we will hide them. But first let's go and quickly work on it. So now you have here VLOOKUP. So first you're going to write you have to make the plan. So you first go with the physics and the chemistry, let's say. So basically you don't have to evaluate these ones. Let me change my question, right? So on the task. Okay, so now we have developed this. So I go and write here if and. Let's quickly go and write what is my logic 1. This is my logic 1, comma logic 2. So make sure we do the comparison here, greater than 80, right? Because logics always returns true and false, and greater than 80. And this should be now chemistry. So for the chemistry, I have to go back and check what is the chemistry. So chemistry is after the physics. Okay, so I come back here, if and, copy this. First you put the greater than 80. So this returns you the physics score, and then you go and write in the logic 2 6 and then 7. So if these are going to be true, what do you want? Close the bracket. You are on the value of true, pass. Perfect. Now what? in the true now in the false, what you do, let's say if this condition fails, if these people haven't got greater than 80 in both physics and chemistry, then you're going to find out the total of all the subjects. So now you have two scenarios. One is you go and use here 5 or 6 VLOOKUPs and find out the score of every marks and keep on adding them, so that way, you know, it is going to be like this. First you write the first VLOOKUP, then you write the second VLOOKUP, and then you write the, you know, 3 4 5 VLOOKUPs together. You want to sum them, which is not a good idea. That's why I calculated the sum there in the sheet 3. So now I simply say that if, because this is just a one condition now, if VLOOKUP of this person, okay, then in this table, what is the column number? This is going to be 9th, because I need the total, and total is on the 9th column if I start from D, because you can see 8 rows 10 column, it, you know, shows you there. So I say that if the 9th column, the value in the 9th column is going to be greater than 10 or whatever it is, let's go and check that. 300, so I go and write here 300. If the total marks of that person is greater than 300, then what you want to do? Then in the value true, you want to write again pass. So this is a single if now we are working, because we have just one criteria. Okay, so make sure this E6 should also be trimmed, because this is, you know, I have created some spaces here. So I go and trim this E6, close the bracket, and let us go and freeze this F4. So if this is greater than 300, I will have a pass. What if this does not have greater than 300, if this person? No problem, then just go and check the another condition. If the average of that person is greater than 50, so to get the average, I already know that the average is on the next column. So I simply go and, you know, paste that function here, and I say that this is going to be 10, because in the 10th column I have my average, and I'm going to see that if the average is greater than 50, then also that person should show as pass in the true parameter. But eventually, if this is also not true, then we're going to say fail. Finally, all conditions are done. That's how it is. So I go and press enter, and we have the answer. Now I go and drag this. I think the formula should work. Now you can see here we have created a lot of spaces here, like, you know, so many spaces here, but still we are able to pick it up, and the only reason is that we are using the trim here. So Anup is going to be Anup, it's not Anup space. That is what it is, right? So let's go and quickly check that. Ajay, so Ajay is showing fail. He scored 265, not greater than 300. Average is below 50, and in the physics and the chemistry also not a good attempt. So if I go and change this to, let's say, 90, and now this is greater than 300, average is also actually greater than 50, this person now should be pass, and we have got that pass, right? That's how it is. So this is how the formula, I think, is working pretty good. So if I go and let's say I just make that person again 66, now this is again now going to be my fail. But if I, let's say, I say in the physics and the chemistry, I say that it's going to be 98 and 88, right? Now the question comes here, I not only have the physics chemistry greater than 80, but the total is also good, and the average is also greater than my criteria. So definitely you will have a pass here. But you know, the point is, which you need to understand, basically these if will not come into action. Excel will not go in that area, because Excel finds that my first condition satisfies. So if I first condition satisfies, I will simply go in this pass and print the value, and I can show you that thing here. Suppose I go and make this SSS. Now let me press enter. You see that why it did not print this pass, why it printed this PASSS? Because function stops here. So if works like a loop, we saw that. So if the first condition satisfies, why it would go in this false, right? And by the way, we did one mistake. If the average of the subject is greater than 50, it has to be in progress. So here where you're finding the average, this one, this has to be in progress. That is how it is. So that's how you write the if criterias. Any questions we have? In the next chapter now, we're going to talk about the error handlers. So you must go through all these things, practice on this. I'll send you the if assignment also. I haven't sent you the if assignment. You can go and work on those if assignment, and on the channel also there is a playlist called if Excel if. Apart from, if you want to see more such examples which I like today discussed, that's available on my YouTube also. Excel if is a playlist name. So that's it for now, guys. I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed this VLOOKUP and the if exercises, right? So you can have more examples. You know, you can go through my YouTube channel. On the YouTube, as I said, that there is a playlist Excel VLOOKUP and match, and then there is another playlist which is Excel if function. So you can go through a lot of other examples also, because in these videos basically we are trying to clear your fundamentals, right? We are trying to make your basics pretty strong, and in fact we are you yourself, you can see that we were talking about everything, but we cannot go and discuss 100 examples in a single video, right? So for that, once you have these videos, these basic videos, once you have once you go through these videos and your concept gets clear, and now what is the in and out of these functions, because we take so much time in all these discussions, then you can go and check out the more examples on the advanced side from the YouTube, where I directly go and discuss the things, right? So that's how your learning would come. And don't forget to work on the assignments as well, because you have to work on the assignments, and it is your responsibility to go and do the work and then come back to me with your questions. Because if you don't ask me the questions, I would imagine that you're going absolutely with the 100% accuracy. You're moving forward with a great knowledge. So these are all the things you have to take care. Do the assignment, watch the video again and again if you want to understand it, if you want to revise the things, because the more you watch, the better you're going to be in Excel. So that's why it is so important for us to work on the Excel all the time, right? And so when you say work, that means you see the content and then you do it yourself, and that's what it is. So I'll see you in my next video, and you take care of yourself and have a fantastic learning. Bye bye.